Stop what you're doing, because 8 million people once lived in cities larger than ancient Rome. They mapped the stars with a precision that still impresses modern astronomers. They calculated the length of the solar year to within a fraction of a second. Without telescopes, without computers, without metal tools. They were, by any measure, one of the most advanced civilizations in human history. And then they vanished. Not slowly, not gradually. In less than 150 years, the cities were abandoned. The kings stopped building, the calendar stopped being carved, the jungle moved in. 8 million people gone. And nobody, in over a century of searching, has been able to fully explain why. For most of that century, scientists thought they had the answer. Drought. Simple. The rain stopped, the crops failed, the cities died. Case closed. Move on. But in August 2025, everything changed. A research team analyzed a stalagmite pulled from a cave in Mexico, a stone that records rainfall like a diary, layer by layer, for thousands of years. Yes, there was drought. Severe. Including one that lasted 13 years straight. But that wasn't what destroyed the Maya, because somewhere else in Guatemala, a city called Itzan had perfect rainfall. Stable climate, no drought at all, and its population vanished just as completely as everywhere else. The real answer is something far more disturbing. The Maya cities were not isolated. They were a network, economically, politically, militarily connected across hundreds of miles. And when drought struck some cities, the entire network began to unravel. Wars broke out. Trade routes collapsed. Refugees flooded stable cities. And one by one, even the cities that should have survived didn't. Like dominoes, falling in slow motion across a century. Here is what most people don't know about the classic Maya. They were not peaceful. The image of wise astronomers gazing at the stars, now that's real. But so is this. They fought each other constantly. City against city. King against king. Captured enemies were tortured and sacrificed publicly. The Maya world was soaked in blood as much as it was illuminated by genius. And when the droughts came, the wars intensified. Kings who could no longer feed their people lost their claim to divine power. Rival cities sensed weakness and attacked. Farmers abandoned fields. The agricultural system that had fed millions, a system requiring constant labor, constant cooperation, began to break down from the inside. But there was a third force, one the Maya had been building toward for centuries. They had been cutting down their forests, clearing land, building cities, and by the 9th century, vast areas of the Maya lowlands had been stripped bare. The soil was exhausted. The rains ran off instead of soaking in. The ingeniously engineered reservoirs that stored water through dry seasons began to fail one by one. November 2025. A landmark study in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences modeled the rise and fall of classic Maya cities in unprecedented detail. Their conclusion: the same forces that made the cities grow, agriculture, trade, population density, became the forces that made them impossible to sustain. The Maya didn't just face a crisis. They had built a system that was always going to break. Eventually, think about what that means. The Maya were not destroyed by something that came from outside. No invading army, no asteroid, no plague. They were destroyed by the very things that made them great. Their cities were too big. their population too dense, their forests too depleted, their kings too ambitious. They built themselves into a corner, and then the rain stopped. Then came July 2025, and a discovery that reframed everything. At the ancient city of Karakol in Belize, archaeologists uncovered the tomb of Tekab Chak, Karakol's very first known ruler, buried with jade, obsidian, and luxury objects from hundreds of miles away. Proof of a civilization at the absolute height of its power and confidence. And proof, without knowing it, of exactly what would be lost. Because every object in that tomb came through a network. A network of trade, trust, and cooperation that stretched across Mesoamerica. The same network that 4 centuries later would unravel under the weight of drought and war and exhausted soil. Tekab Chak was buried at the beginning. We are looking at the evidence of the end. Here is what makes the Maya collapse so haunting. These were not people who didn't see disaster coming. They were sophisticated enough to predict solar eclipses centuries in advance. Their calendar tracked astronomical cycles with an accuracy that took Europe 1,000 more years to match. They understood the cosmos. They just couldn't save themselves from each other. The same kings who commissioned pyramids that have stood for 1,000 years could not stop the wars that were tearing their cities apart. The same mathematicians who calculated the movements of Venus could not solve the equation of drought plus deforestation plus military collapse. They knew everything about the sky and not enough about what was happening on the ground. And here is what the inscriptions tell us. The ones being translated right now in universities around the world. The kings knew something was wrong. Some of them tried to stop the wars. Some built new reservoirs. Some performed increasingly desperate rituals, larger sacrifices, more elaborate ceremonies, trying to bring the rains back. None of it worked. The system was already past the point of no return. City by city, the silence spread. Copan went dark around 800 CE, then Palenque, then Tikal, the greatest city of the Maya world, home to perhaps 100,000 people, abandoned. The last long count date carved at a major lowland site, 909 CE. After that, nothing. The jungle moved in. And within a generation, cities that had taken centuries to build were unrecognizable. But here is what history books get wrong. The Maya did not disappear. 8 million people did not cease to exist. They dispersed. They migrated. The Maya language is still spoken today by millions of people across Mexico and Central America. What ended was not the Maya people. What ended was the classic Maya state. The kings, the cities, the monuments, the system. The people survived. The civilization didn't. And this distinction is important. Because when we ask what destroyed the Maya, we are really asking a question about ourselves. What is the breaking point of a complex civilization? How many simultaneous pressures, climate, conflict, environmental collapse, can a society absorb before it fails? And how much warning does it get before it's too late? The researchers who modeled the Maya collapse noted something that should make everyone stop. The droughts that struck the Maya between 750 and 900 CE were of similar severity to those projected for the same region within the next century due to climate change. The warning isn't just in the ruins, the warning is in the timing and the interconnected network that collapsed. Trade routes, agricultural supply chains, political alliances, looks remarkably like the global systems we depend on today. The Maya didn't know their network was fragile until it was too late. The question researchers are now asking quietly in academic papers and conference rooms is simple. Do we? But here's the twist nobody saw coming. In 2018, LiDAR technology, laser scanning from aircraft, was turned on the jungles of Guatemala, and what it revealed stunned the archaeological world. There were not a few dozen Maya cities hidden beneath the canopy. There were thousands, roads connecting them, canals, fortifications, agricultural terraces stretching for miles, a civilization 3 times larger than anyone had imagined, which means we have been asking the wrong question for 100 years. We have been asking, why did the Maya collapse? When the real question is, how did something this vast, this complex, this extraordinary survive as long as it did? And what does it mean that even something this large has eventually ended? Right now, dozens of teams are working across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, translating inscriptions, excavating tombs, analyzing soil samples. Every year brings new findings that reshape the story. The Maya collapse is not a solved mystery, it is an active investigation, and every new piece of evidence makes it more complex and more relevant to today. 3 Maya books survived the Spanish conquest. Just 3. Every other book, thousands of them, was burned. In 1462, Bishop Diego de Landa ordered the burning of every Maya manuscript he could find. He destroyed in a single afternoon what it had taken centuries to create. We will never know what was in those books, what knowledge was lost, what answers died in that fire. The Maya built Tikal when Rome was still a village. They understood the concept of zero before Europe did. They fed millions of people in a jungle with no navigable rivers, no metal tools, no wheels. They mapped the stars. They built pyramids. They created art of extraordinary beauty. And then the rains stopped, and the king started fighting, and the forests disappeared, and the network fell apart. And right now, in the jungle of Guatemala, there are cities that have never been excavated, tombs that have never been opened, evidence that has never been read. The LiDAR scans show thousands of structures still buried. The full story of what happened to the Maya has not been told yet, because we haven't found all the pieces. And there is one more thing. The Maya left behind a writing system. Thousands of inscriptions carved into stone, painted on walls, written in books. For centuries, nobody could read it. It was only in the 1980s that researchers finally cracked the Maya script. And what they found changed everything. The inscriptions were not religious texts. They were history. Kings describing wars, droughts, famines, the collapse, written by the people who lived through it. Still being translated today. The Maya left us their calendar, their mathematics, their cities, their art, and buried in all of it a question they could not answer. And we still can't. Why does civilization fail? What is the distance between brilliance and collapse? How close are we right now to finding out? 8 million people, 150 years, cities swallowed by jungle, a calendar still counting, and an answer. Still somewhere in the ruins, still waiting, still growing deeper under the trees, still waiting to be found.